Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulihil Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى يقول في كتابه العزيز والفرقان الحميد فأعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلوا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله صدق الله العظيم. وقال تعالى وما أصابكم من مصيبة فبما كسبت أيديكم ويعفو عن كثير صدق الله العظيم. وعن النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وصحبه وسلم أنه قال أمتي كجسد واحد إذا اشتكى عضو منه اشتكى كله أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم بارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذرياته وأهل بيته وخلفائه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. Respected ulama ikram, mashayikhin, elders, brothers and sisters, children, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, today we are in your company and mashallah we are presenting this special episode of the program to discuss about the situation of Sudan. I know we have mentioned before also in our general talk and general programming, but still when I speak to individuals, I realize that people are not aware of the situation of Sudan. When you ask them about Sudan emergency or what's happening over there, they just think usual Africa issues or challenges to do with water, food security and so on. Today we are here to understand what's happening in Sudan, to basically find out what people going through, how is affecting lives of not basically hundreds or thousands but possibly millions of people, and how is affecting our UK community here. For me, mashallah, is you can say any emergency in the world is priority for myself. I would have been there myself physically, but mashallah, my team members from Kenya, from Somaliland and from Tanzania, these guys are responding to it through different countries. We did try to enter into Sudan itself while everyone were trying to exit, because if you want to tackle and assess the problem and basically help those people who are in real need, that would be within the country itself. Yeah. So inshallah, to carry on with the program today, I have mashallah quite few community elders with me, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them and bless them. I'll move to the mashallah my right side, Dr. Tarig Taha. Dr. Tarig, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to IQRA TV, mashallah.
Thank you so much.
And then my immediate right is Dr. Fathi Elsadig Jamil. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah. And then on my immediate left, Sister Marafee Omer, if I have pronounced correctly.
Correctly.
MashaAllah. Thank you very much. And then we have Sister Tracy Pater.
Thank you for having us.
I hope I have pronounced that also correctly.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. So we are 5 people here today, and we will be discussing about the challenge and situation and issues there. I will not be talking from Al-Khair point of view, because that will not narrow it down. We will be talking about literally overall all aspects of it, and we are with you for next 1.5 to 2 hours, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. First of all, welcome to all of you. I'll come to yourself. Can you give just, before we go into point by point, just brief introduction why we are here.
جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الواحد الأحد الفرد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. First of all, we are really very grateful for Qanat IQRA TV channel for giving us this opportunity to speak to our fellows, Muslim and others, about the situation in Sudan and to explain the circumstances that our people in the country and those who have been evacuated from Sudan to the UK and maybe other countries. And we also want to today to give a background about the origins of the problems in Sudan. So that is my first thing I wanted to say.
MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khair. So coming to the points, basically, it is a conflict. Is it a conflict of interest, a struggle for justice, search for political power, or what is it?
You may be surprised if I say all of these together. Of course, as a Sudanese, and I lived in Sudan all my life except the last 30 years since I came to this country here in 1989 to settle here. And I lived in Darfur, which is a region that has been known throughout the world with conflicts.
Yes.
And also I visited South Sudan, which at that time was part of the whole country. We used to have the largest country in Africa, 1 million square miles. And now South Sudan is a separate independent country. Now going back to Darfur, I worked for about 25 years in Darfur. And the problems in Darfur started some years ago because of drought, desertification, and the increase of human and animal population. And of course, there was a system before that when there was like an agreed system of land use between farmers and nomads. Normally what happens during the dry season, nomads with their cattle move from the north, from the south, north to the south, because there is normally lack of water in the north and lack of grass. So they come to the south. Then during the rainy season, they move to the north. And there was like a system between tribes of this side and that side that they don't start moving to the south until farmers collect their harvest. And then they bring their cattle or camels or sheep. And the first thing that they do, and it was actually beneficial relationship between the two, the animals will come to and eat the remains of the crops in the farms. And of course, they fertilize the land. Water was in abundance at that time. Now, what happened is that because of the increase of population, both human and animals, and the expansion of agricultural production to satisfy the needs of human beings, the land available for the animals became smaller and smaller. And of course, we have also very important crops like gum arabic tree, and this is a source of income for farmers, and of course for the whole country. Sudan produces, at that time used to be 95% of the whole world production of gum arabic, which, is a very useful product for all industry, including even Pepsi, Cola, Coca-Cola, and many other chemicals. Now, because of these things, started conflicts between tribes. And normally there was a system that people sit together. If, for example, some animals from a nomad entered a land of a farmer before they are allowed to do so, they sit down together and they estimate the loss of the farmer, and then they pay him, and the nomad can go away. But then that is collapsed because of political reasons. One government at that time abolished the traditional administration system. So there was no way that people can come and sit together because the local leaders have no power now. know. So that started to lead conflicts between different tribes. You know, Darfur is known to have two types of tribes: the Arabs and the Africans or non-Arab tribes. Through the centuries, they used to live together in peace. But because of these
And I guess
environmental...
one of them is majority Muslim, another one...
both of them are Muslims.
Both of them.
Both of them. Most of the... I think now I would say 98% of the Sudan are Muslims.
Yes.
You know, whether they are from African origin or Arabic origin.
Right.
Now, because the system has collapsed, no racism started to come up, you see. And unfortunately, since independence in 1956, we had not been lucky to have a good, strong government that would plan for the country and to like cope with the environmental changes. Mm-hmm. And of course, the worst thing is that most of the decisions of government were based in the capital in Khartoum. So central government was in Khartoum. Say, for example, the city I used to work with is about 1,350 miles away from the capital, you see. And until maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was no means of communication. We used to have the old telephones that you dial, that old British system.
Dialer, yes.
Yeah. Communication was bad. And that's why sometimes I witnessed some conflicts myself. I remember one day I was traveling to a village in the south, and when I went there was nothing. When I came back, there were bodies thrown on the land. There was conflict there, and huts burnt, fire, you see. So I had to go to the police in the headquarters of the province and report to them, because they don't have any other way to communicate with each other. So there are some roots of these problems, but essentially it started for the reason of increase of population and reduction of resources. Lack of political will to, put a system that deals with these issues. The very centralized system of government. So, and then there is no stability in the political system. So we had many military governments, most of the years since independence in 1950, we were ruled by military. Democracy never succeeded in Sudan. And of course, I don't blame the military only. I blame also political parties for the failure of, establishing democracy in the country. And of course, like many of other African and Muslim countries, we are failing to, establish a system like our original Islamic system that is, empowering people to rule themselves, you see. So this is the background of it. Now, the current war started many years ago, but it wasn't really that like now. Because most of the people in rural areas lacking services, they all used to look at the capital, Khartoum, as the only place that they can come. Khartoum one day used to have 1 million people. Now it has more than 20 million people. Most of the country immigrated to the capital, imagine. And then some armed forces started to bring their soldiers to the capital. And that's why the question is about whether it is conflict of interest, yes. Interest in ruling the country, yes. Struggle for justice, yes, because people in the rural areas far away from the capital felt that all the resources are along the Nile, and not all of it. The British left us a very successful project called Al Jazeera that produces the main products of the Sudan at that time, which is cotton. But of course, cotton has become now less important because of synthetics. You see, now we have more than 560 tribes in Sudan.
560.
560 tribes, and we have over 100 languages. I can call them language, but they are like dialects or tongues. You see, all of us we speak Arabic. It is the common language. You see, Arabic. All of us, or 99% are Muslims. But yet, the lack of communication between these groups
Because
is a
I
barrier.
recall before creation of South Sudan,
Yeah,
I think Sudan was the only country in the world
yes,
whose nationals were 100% Muslims
yes.
before creation of South Sudan.
No, before the creation of South Sudan as a state, we used to, I would say maybe 90% of the country were Muslims, and in the south, maybe 5% Christians, and many are Muslims, even in the south. And I tell you one thing, I used to work in the south. The majority of people between 98, when I worked in the south, 1978 and 1982, you know, the majority of people that they're neither Muslims, neither Christians. They follow traditional African religions. And many of those who are like cattle herders, I remember a very funny story that they have like a local court, and most of the problems about women and cattle. You see, when two people come to the court, they put to them the Quran and the Bible, but many people say, no, I'm not Muslim, I'm not a Christian. I'm just a person.
Right.
No. And some of them would swear on like a spear or like a head of corn or something like that. They don't know. They are very simple people. Our central government, because of centralization, they did not do much effort to introduce education to that part of the country. You see, we lost the south, which is a very rich part of the country. It was, you see, because we did not manage the relationship properly. These were our brothers. Until now, we are very close to each other on individual cases. But the way, actually, of course, colonization managed to separate the two populations.
This is part of bigger plan.
Exactly. So they used to say in the case of Sudan, to those in the south, don't go to the north, those Arabs are slave traders. They will sell you like before. And they used to go to the northern people, which is mostly Arabs and some Africans. They would say, don't go to the south, those people are primitive. You see. When I went to the south, most of them are very welcoming people, normal like us, you know. And I went to their houses, very generous like the rest of the country. But the colonial power planted the seed of, you know, separation, and we blindly followed it. So that's why I'm saying that it is between all these things, struggle of power, especially elite. It is look for justice, especially in development and you know, economy. Lack of harmony because we are one country, but we are different tribes.
So I'll come to Dr. The immediate effects of the war on health and basically psychological trauma. What's the situation on that? I'll come to other questions.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
First of all, I thank so much IQRA channel because of getting this chance to speak about our lovely country, Sudan, which is in despair and also in a real crisis now. So what we can tell that this conflict between the military groups, which is just random, haphazard, with no any aim other than getting the power. So it is a kind of real catastrophe and crisis to the whole population of Sudan, especially those in the capital who moved towards other places. So what I can tell on the ground for today, up to date, so we have almost 1,000 killed on the ground. This from the civilians, almost many thousands who are injured or being like getting worse because of the chronic illnesses, no health services, and also there are millions who either escape to other places, other states in Sudan, or cross the borders to neighbor countries, including Ethiopia, Chad, and Egypt, and even South Sudan. So the situation now is really very bad there. So the capital city, you know, we have got most of the hospitals stopped working because either that is ruined, destroyed totally, or that this is some of the groups, military groups, are occupying these places, staying there, using them as like a base for fighting, or even also they're taking the doctors and the health professionals, working for them to treat the people there, to injured people, and also so this on taking this from working with the normal people who are suffering, people with renal failures, they're getting people with transplants, people who are getting like serious chronic conditions, heart conditions, diabetic people, they are not getting the insulin because of no medical supply to the patients. And also at the same time, you know, it is people who are just trying to escape. So we have people killed by the guns, but there are people killed also by other means. So either that, when I talk about psychological, so we have many stories that people killed and their families also followed. May Allah have mercy on all of them. So people, some people, fathers, mothers, or even daughters or sons, they have heart attacks because of loss of the family members. And also, you know, so people are getting no health services. They are not getting the doctors on time. They are not getting to any place because no work in hospitals. And also at the same time, you know, this psychological trauma is following the people. It's invisible. You can see on the physical trauma, you can see the bleeding, you can see the fracture, burns, different kind of injuries physically. But psychologically, you have invisible trauma which will take time, long time, following you in the place, the time, and where you are. For example, all of us here, we are also, we are traumatized. We and our friends, our people who are different countries in the world. So the immediate effect of war or these conflicts that only most of the civilians are those who are impacted heavily because they lost their lovely people, they lost their houses, they lost their incomes, and also they're just fleeing, trying to escape the places. Some of them, they're evacuated, luckily enough to come to different countries, for example, Western countries, which the ladies here, ourselves, are working with them hardly, and they're getting support from different countries. And also some, they went also to Gulf, and most of them, they have no places to go to, so they're just trying to escape through the borders, Egypt, Chad, and also Ethiopia. So the psychological trauma is very, very difficult. It's to work with, to start with, and also to get through the long-term support. So immediately when something happened, you know, for the physical injury, the people, they seek the support directly, stop bleeding, try to get people supported with their physical health trauma. But psychological trauma needs support by the professionals because they're trying to get the safety, very safe place, because if you are not safe, you will be starting to have this complex trauma. So in our terminology, after a couple of weeks, 4 weeks, so this will be like complicated trauma, like post-traumatic stress disorders, which is the most difficult to treat of the mental disorders. So we're trying to get this to be understood by the lay people, how to do like first aid, how to help people at the time, trying to get them like to safe place, try to calm down, comfort, getting them to have the right social support is the most important thing, because family, friends, and those, because you know, for the psychological trauma, this is like something you need to have someone. You can work on it, but you know, all the times you need some support, which is like at the time. Okay, so the damage is huge, and the people, even they are not impacted, because the trauma, psychological trauma, it can be like it's something you witness yourself, or you also have like through the media. So people here, for example, our colleagues, our doctors, they can't work. They can't do day-to-day work because they're heavily impacted. No communications with the families, loss of lovely people, and also feeling like disabled. What can I do for our people? This is the thing. But you know, there are many efforts trying to get through the professionals from different Sudanese medical doctors and the diaspora who are left in Sudan, who escaped to other states, from non-professionals, from different psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, different people who are interested to support, because this is a non like single one like efforts. So we need collective work. It's not only by funding the monies, but you know, we need to have the time and also the real work on the ground. So for the time being, we can just recommend people to be together, support each other, to have people who are still there. I hope, from the news, they said that they will try to get some secure like routes to the people to leave the place where the war, where the people are fighting. So if they get out, so people, they can get the right support. They can get also some supportive group from inside, crossing the borders through Egypt or other countries, and also those who are lucky enough to come to this country. So we are working hard with our partners, with different medical associations, with the union, with different people from different trusts, from different cities, working hard to get these people supported and getting them through it's difficult to return to day-to-day life because this is heavily impacted, because for the sleep, for having like test of what to do, looking after yourself, looking after your kids, if you have a family, looking after the elderly, and also trying to have normal life, for example, having adequate fluids, diet, and also having the social support. So we are suffering in all kind of day-to-day life.
Thank you very much. Inshallah, we'll carry on with the discussion with yourself.